Good evening, football fans. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you are in. I am Bill Corpus Crispy Murphy, and welcome to week 4 of Thursday Night Gridiron here on the Sports Insanity Network. And I am joined by Mark Oldofsky Halperd and John Haraska, who has put it up with me for 2 weeks in a row because he's a glutton for punishment. um, but we got a great show for you tonight. We got a game to talk about in which some loyalties and friendships may be tested here tonight. The Dallas Cowboys are playing the New York Football Giants. As you can see, Mark's outnumbered.
As usual.
Yeah, but yeah, three of us. Lawrence Patchman Lang said he'll be making an appearance in about 10 minutes, and well, he's not a Cowboys fan, but you got someone who's more neutral,
Yes,
Mark.
I,
So,
I, I get a non-biased individual tonight.
so we are going to be as non-biased as humanly possible.
Yeah, okay.
Putting that aside, gentlemen, how we doing this evening?
Can't really complain. Excited for tonight's matchup.
Mark?
Me personally, this is a game in which, no offense to the two of you, this is gonna be a trouncing, and I think Dallas is throwing the book out the window and is just gonna run everything they can.
Well, we'll see because we got some stuff we got to get through first. First, we're gonna recap Dallas, who last week lost against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens
Yep.
by a score of 28-25. Dak Prescott threw 28 completions for 51 attempts, 379 yards, 7.4 average, 2 touchdowns, no interception, was sacked 3 times. And he had a rushing touchdown and also receiving touchdowns from Devontae Turpin and Jalan Tolbert. So, Mark, since you're the lone Cowboys fan, what did you think of last week's performance against Baltimore?
It started off like every other game for the last 5 games. Dallas comes out and tries to run a balanced attack with a three-headed running back that it can barely average 4 yards a carry. As I said, I'm excited to have Zeke back. All I want to see him do is score a touchdown here and there. Let him go out of Cowboy. The Dallas Cowboys don't have a solid runner. What does that mean? Dak Prescott has to put the ball up over 50 times. It's a team built for this. However, they came out trying to be balanced and they fell behind early. I think what was their saving grace is that Baltimore offense got so tired, and then the defense was out on that field for as long as like the Dallas defense was on the first half, and that gave Dallas a chance to come back. Dak Prescott made no errors. He played a fantastic game. The big loss is not being able to stop Derrick Henry, and that running attack of Baltimore is just back.
Oh, absolutely. But I think the thing is, and John, I'll get to you in a second, but I think the thing is that what Dallas, and this is something they're going to have to do tonight, is they're going to have to jump on this early because before you get down to the wire, it's too late. And I think that was the big thing with the game last week. They just waited too long to actually get things going. John, what were your thoughts on the Dallas Baltimore game last week?
I only saw the recaps afterwards. I'm not gonna lie, but
We appreciate your honesty.
but they had such a major disadvantage going into the second half. We're able to pull off some sort of comeback. I tell you what. Unfortunately, though, it was a little too late, or excuse me, too little too late for Dallas, and they fell just short. Heartbreaking fashion, too, even as a Giants fan. You lose by such a close margin with a late game surge. That's gotta hurt.
It did. It really did hurt. But it is what it is. Dallas played a great second half. They just have to become consistent.
Yes. And something that Jerry Jones said after the game, and this is raising a few eyebrows. He said that they couldn't. I guess they asked him, "Why didn't you sign Derrick Henry, who had who played against Dallas on Sunday?" And they said, "Why didn't you sign him?" He said, "Well, we couldn't afford it." That's raising some eyebrows.
It's not the truth though. They could afford it, but the thing is, you have Dallas that's coming out losing as much as they've had in the last few years and not getting past the wild card, and that's because of the fact that they have no real pitching. I mean, real pitching, real running backs.
Wrong sport.
Yeah, I know. This Dallas team is a very good team, but right now, your offense is great to put up 25 points, but Baltimore put up 28 and you lose. That's how it works.
John, what do you think? Do you think they really couldn't afford it, or do you call BS?
Oh, I absolutely call BS because they have nearly $26 million in cap space this year alone, which is the seventh most in the league, by the way. And
Right.
the contract that Derrick Henry signed with the Ravens was only $16 million over 2 seasons. So that knocks out roughly $8 million, depending on what the structure is of the contract. So they still would have had cap space to spare. Now, I will say, though, that when Jerry Jones further in that interview said that he wouldn't direct the running game and lack thereof over the last 3 games to any singular running back because it takes the O-line to get them out and the passing game to keep them honest in the run game. That makes sense because and this goes for any football team, if your offensive line can't block worth a damn, either your quarterback is going to get sacked or anyone who's running, quarterback, tight end, running back, doesn't matter, they're going to get stopped dead in their tracks.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to agree with both of you. I call BS on Jerry Jones. You can absolutely afford Derrick Henry. You could absolutely afford it. Like at first I was thinking, well, because they just gave Dak a big payday. Are they gonna do they have the money for Derrick Henry? And I think they did. I think Jerry Jones just doing typical Jerry Jones things and trying to dismiss it.
Well, there was 2 big factors. You had to sign Dak Prescott and you had to sign CD Lamb. They accomplished both of that. Fine. I mean, Prescott's numbers next year are going to compare to like Otani's numbers does for the Dodgers. He got little against the cap. So Dallas is accepting the fact they're going to use this 3-headed running back. The receiving core is one of the best receiving cores in football. If Dak is given the time. Next season, we'll see a free agent powerhouse running back be coming into Dallas.
Okay. So anyway, what happens to the Dallas Cowboys if they lose this game? John?
I say either one of 2 things, because keeping in mind this was the same team that on opening night last year in the Meadowlands shut the Giants out 40-0. So if they lose this game, also in the Meadowlands,
No, the Cowboys. What
more
happens if the
likely
Cowboys lose tonight?
scenario.
I mean, what happens if the Cowboys lose tonight?
No, I'm saying if they lose this game, they're like, oh man, we blew them out the first face-off last year and they just whipped us. They're either going to go into a spiral that'll take them to a losing record, or they're going to be like, oh, F those guys. We are going to do everything in our power to make sure that doesn't happen again. And they are going to go on an absolute tear throughout the league, including their second matchup against the Giants,
which is on Thanksgiving Day.
How about that?
So, Mark, is this going to be your next Thanksgiving of you texting me to see if I'm still alive?
Yeah, probably. To answer your question, Bill, and I'll make it very quick because John said it nicely. If Dallas loses this game, Mike McCarthy is fired after the game. That's it. There will be no extra time for Mike McCarthy. You'll see Schottenheimer's son take over the offensive play calls, and we're going to welcome in our president, Lawrence Patchman Land. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday
Hey,
evening.
Patchman.
Yes, yo, what's up?
How you doing?
We're here.
That's good. Good to see you here.
Oh yeah. Anytime I get to watch, the Giants and the Cowboys go at it, and then get to see two good friends go at it and good fun, it'd be a good night because I can just be the unbiased fan here.
Yeah, you're gonna be the ref tonight.
Yeah, be the ref, all right.
Patch, what do you think is gonna happen to Dallas if they lose this game?
Yeah. It's gonna be where did 60 million, where did 200 and some odd $1 million go to pay a quarterback that probably should have gotten paid at the end of the season, depending on how the Cowboys did.
I think that's very fair. I think can we all agree if Dallas loses tonight, they're in big trouble.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and you're going to hear a lot of chirping from the New York fans.
And if that happens, we're gonna enjoy every minute of it, aren't we, John?
Yes, we are.
But that's one big if. That is one big if.
Otherwise,
and anyway, because you got to look at it this way: if Dallas loses tonight, their next 3 games, they got Pittsburgh, who's been on a tear. They got Detroit, who's Detroit, and then they got San Francisco. So after tonight, if they lose tonight, they're basically screwed or close to it.
The only game that I'm going to say I'm not concerned about is the San Francisco game. And there's obviously reason on that is because three-quarters of the team is on the IR. So I think we have a chance against San Francisco. Detroit, not if they're playing like this. Pittsburgh, I don't know what to make of them yet. It's early. We've seen quarterbacks start off hot like Justin Fields has. I don't want to sell and give this kid the keys to the franchise until after 2 more games.
Oh, well, if Russell Wilson's healthy, Russell Wilson might be starting.
Fair.
Yeah, but how do you pull Justin Fields, who's led you to 3-0?
You've seen crazier stuff.
Oh, that's true.
Yes. So anyway, but I think Dallas, they lose tonight, they're screwed. Or close to it. Next question. Who do you guys think needs to step up tonight? So, you know what? Since he just came in, Pat, you go first. Who do you think needs to step up tonight for Dallas?
Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott got paid, and what have the Cowboys done since? They got blown out, and then they got blown out again. Dak Prescott has to prove that he's worth this money and, go out and show that this is not a waste of money, and I'm not just saying, F you, I'm just taking the money. I'm going to take this easy now the rest of my career.
All right.
We've seen it with past quarterbacks that have gotten paid, excluding Jordan Love, that just got hurt at the end with 36 seconds left in the 4th quarter where he went down. Quarterbacks get paid, and then all of a sudden, they just, they fluff around, minus Patrick Mahomes going out winning 3 Super Bowls. And Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things. Josh Allen just can't get over the hump right now, but at least we know those 2 quarterbacks are going to be consistent in getting their teams to the playoffs and getting to maybe a Super Bowl run and winning a Super Bowl where they're worth that kind of money. Dak Prescott has won 1 playoff game in his career, if I'm not mistaken, right, Mark?
You are correct.
He's won 1 playoff game, and what's he do? He becomes the highest paid quarterback in the league.
Right.
All right. Mark, who do you think needs to step up tonight?
I think it's the Dallas defense. The offense shows they can score. I think the Dallas defense now, no offense, Bill, I know, and John, don't take this too personally. Devin Singletary is not the answer in New York. He had a nice game last week. I'm not going to say he didn't. He had a nice game last week. But I think the Dallas defense is out for blood and is out to stop and make sure and prove they're the team that this defense can be.
Yes. John, who do you think needs to step up tonight for Dallas?
I'm going to say their offensive line and any tight ends that enter the game, because their run game wasn't great these past couple of weeks, I don't think. And then, like I said earlier, if the O-line doesn't block, their run game is screwed, and to a degree, their pass game as well.
I'm going to say who needs to step up tonight is Zeke.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's been a little quiet lately. I think he needs to wake up. I think his run game needs to wake up. So I'm saying Ezekiel Elliott. Okay. Now we flip the ball to the New York Football Giants. All right, recapping the Browns last week. Daniel Jones threw 24 completions for 34 attempts, 236 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Devin Singletary, 16 carries, 65 yards, 4.1 average, 1 touchdown, and Malik Neighbors, 8 receptions, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like a good neighbor, Malik is there.
Patch, we can't get sued for that one, can we?
It's a parody. It falls under fair use. We're good.
Oh, Bill pulls out the legal term. Nice move.
Fair use copyright. It's a parody.
Nice move, Bill.
Well done, man. Well done.
Still, you're getting a ding because that was not good.
Oh, come on. Reg liked it.
That's Reg.
Reg likes everything.
Reg is the vice president. He just smiles and waves.
Okay, so anyway, what did we think of the Giants last week in their game against Cleveland?
You know what? I'll take the soft blow and go first, because I'm a Cowboys fan, and then we'll hand it off to the president. I was actually impressed by this Giants football team. Dallas had beaten Cleveland pretty much the same way the Giants did. I want to say it was almost equally the same way. The Giants defense stepped up. As I mentioned, Singletary had a good game, and then Malik Neighbors had 2 touchdowns. One on a nice post route that was great, but the one in the back of the end zone, that one was just spectacular. And let me tell you, this kid is something special, and if he can get on a rapport of consistency with Daniel Jones, this Giants team could be a little bit more dangerous than it's already made out to be.
Oh, absolutely. I love Malik Neighbors right now. Patch, what did you think?
The Giants looked good. I still don't think they're a great football team. Their saving grace right now is Malik Neighbors. Honestly, the Browns, I think, beat themselves last week, and the Browns should have just ran away with this game, and the Giants just played a little bit better football. Unfortunately, the Browns browned themselves. They browned in their pants, we'll go with. They browned themselves. As many crap jokes as I can make right now.
They knocked them off at the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Taking the Browns. I'm taking the Browns to the Super Bowl, whatever. The Giants looked decent last week, and, the saving grace was Daniel Jones found Malik Neighbors twice, and Singletary got a touchdown. Other than that, the Giants defense, I still think needs to step up big time when big plays need to be stopped. And the Giants still have to find another wide receiver to help Daniel Jones out. You can't just rely on Malik Neighbors.
John, what are your thoughts last week, Giants-Browns?
I gotta say, Malik Neighbors was pretty impressive. He had those pretty huge touchdowns. He held off the defense pretty well. Broke up an interception attempt, but granted, the Browns did have 3 guys on the injured list. So it's kind of 50-50, but I'll take a Giants win however I can get it.
I'll take a win too. Last week, I think Daniel Jones actually played good. And Malik Neighbors, I really like Malik Neighbors right now. This guy is awesome. And also Devin Singletary had a good game. Brian Burns even stepped up in the defense. So good game all around. And may I say it, we actually won a game. We actually won a game. And we have no issues with that, Mark, because that song's in the public domain. So anyway.
That one's okay. That one's okay.
But anyway, yeah, I think the Giants did play well last week. Now, what do we think of Daniel Jones through these past 3 games? Let's start with John.
Even though he struggled in the opening game and a little bit in the second game, he has strengthened his performance quite a bit. I mean, he's around the middle of the pack in terms of quarterback ratings, but having come close last week or the week before last, and then this past week, having actually strung together a win, hats off to the dude.
I totally agree. I think he really has progressed over these 3 games.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you look at him, first game against the Vikings, 22 completions for 42 attempts, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, was sacked 5 times, 15 rushing yards. If you look at week 2 against Washington, 16 completions for 28 attempts, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 5 carries, 32 rushing yards. If you look at last week against Cleveland, you got 24 completions for 34 attempts, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 20 rushing yards. So I think Daniel Jones has progressed very well because I've been saying this, dude, this is a prove it season for him. He needs to prove it, or his ass is on the first ticket out of here. All right. Mark, how do you think Daniel Jones has looked these past 3 games?
Unfortunately, over the few years that Daniel Jones has been with the Giants, the only thing I can close my eyes and think is him tripping over the 20-yard line. But
you're never going to let me forget that, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I'm never going to let you forget that. But watching him play over the last 3 weeks, the first week, yeah, he didn't look perfect. He was sacked a lot. This week, he seemed like he was locked in a little bit more. It seemed like the offensive line was more on cue with the plays that were going on that created those small holes for Singletary and obviously opened up the attempts for Neighbors. This is the best. I don't want to say it's the best. This is one of the better games I've watched Daniel Jones take from beginning to end and literally carry it on his back and did a good job.
Patchman, what do you think?
I'm still not sold on Daniel Jones. I'll be the first to admit that. If you look at the game against Minnesota's defense, great defense. Okay, Commanders, young defense, still trying to figure things out. Cleveland's defense, still trying to figure things out. Am I saying Daniel Jones got lucky? Maybe. But maybe not. Maybe Daniel Jones is progressing. Maybe like a snail. But
I would say let's see how the next couple games go.
Yeah, look at the next couple games. If you look at him right now, he's only has 600 yards passing. That's 20th in the league right now. I mean, his QBR is 16th in league, so he's middle in the pack with a QBR of 52.7, which if you actually look at QBR ratings, that is horrendous. So, he's middle of the pack with that. Okay, 2 interceptions through 3 games. That's actually pretty good. Where maybe this time last season he was at a little bit more than that because he was just playing terrible football. Okay, and 4 touchdowns puts him 9th in the league. Oh, middle. Okay, a little above the middle of the pack, which is hey, good for him. like you said, Bill, this is a prove-it year for him because the Giants can opt out of this contract, which I still think was one of the dumbest contracts in NFL history.
Oh, trust me, I'm still
The
screaming about that.
the other man that should have been paid is thriving in Philadelphia right now with what, 5 or 6 touchdowns through 3 games.
Yeah, don't get me started. I'm going to go on
So
3.
so the man out in Philly right now is, he got the last laugh finally, and he got what he finally deserved, and that was a payday. And you know what? A fresh start, and he's thriving right now.
And we wish him the best.
We wish him the best. And you know what? Looking back, if the Giants don't make the playoffs, the Giants are going to be looking at one of the teams that gave one of the dumbest contracts in football history.
No, I totally agree. Like, again, I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it quick because we got other things we got to get to. I think you should have signed Saquon Barkley and tagged Daniel Jones. They should have done that, but the geniuses known as John Mara and Joe Shane didn't. They didn't listen to me. A random guy who does a podcast out of his basement.
A random schmuck, as you like to say sometimes.
A random schmuck from New York who does a podcast out of his basement. But anyway, so going on to next, who needs to step up tonight?
When you look at the Giants and you're going to look at the Cowboys' past 3 games, I think it's Devin Singletary who needs to break open holes and get some yards on the ground, because you have to figure Trayvon Diggs is going to be on Malik Neighbors tonight. I don't see anybody covering him. So that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. So if Singletary can get going, that might open it up a little more for Neighbors.
All right. Hashman.
Retract my statement. If you look at Saquon Barkley right now, he's second in the league in carries right now at 63. He's first in 351 yards rushing and has 4 touchdowns, what puts him tied with first right now. And he's averaging 5.6 yards a carry. Just to retract to Saquon real quick, we're going back to being with the Eagles right now. If we're looking at the Giants tonight, it's Singletary. Malik Neighbors has already stepped up with when against the game against the Browns, got himself 2 touchdowns. To me, the Giants' run game has to step up tonight, because if they can figure out the run game, to me, the Giants can take a sigh of relief, thinking they might have something on their hands finally and can get past last season's debacle. So Singletary has to step up, and the rest of the run game for the Giants.
Okay. John, who do you think needs to step up tonight?
I'm going to say it's the Giants special teams, because last week they fumbled the opening kickoff, and their newly signed kicker, Greg Joseph, he missed a 48-yarder, which could have helped ice the game against the Browns even earlier than he had been won. So that, to me, says, hey, special teams, get it together, especially against an opponent that blew them away last season and has been blowing them away for ages now.
Okay. My person who has to step up, it's got to be Brian Burns, because even though he did play decent last week, because tonight the Giants got 2 injuries on their secondary. They got Drew Phillips and Dory Jackson are both out. So I think Burns needs to step up tonight for that Giants defense. Okay. What are our X factors tonight for each team? Let's start with John.
I'm going to say for the Giants, they're going to have to sack Dak Prescott as often as possible and break through that offensive line in order to do so, because he leads the league in passing yards so far. This season, he's got 851 going into this game, which is 7 per attempt. And given the time, he will pick apart the safeties and the cornerbacks on the Giants. Their secondary is the second worst in the league right now, by the way. But their second round safety from this year, Tyler Newman, he needs to make a big splash. And what better way to do it than at home against the Cowboys, one of the most bitter rivals of the Giants.
Okay. What's your X factor for Dallas as well?
I was going to say their red zone and run defenses, because with the red zone, when the opposing offense is in their 20-yard line, they have allowed a 90% conversion to touchdowns, and then their run defense has allowed 180, almost 190 average yards a game, with so far 8 rushing touchdowns. So if their run defense and red zone defense aren't there for them tonight, they're going to have a bad time tonight.
Okay. Mark.
So before I make my comment, our good pal Rudy Campos from Sweep the League in Austin, Texas, says Dallas's X factor tonight is definitely Micah Parsons. He has to get to Daniel Jones and slam him into the turf so hard he ends up in China. He also says for the Giants, he agrees with me and John on Devin Singletary, as he needs to be a big focus for the Giants' run. As for me, I kind of like, I know it's funny to say, and Bill said it, it's Zeke Elliott who needs to show up. And the reason why I'm saying that is if you look at Zeke's games against the Giants over the last 10 games, he averages over 100 yards a game, 2 touchdowns, and 5 receptions. This isn't the same Zeke Elliott as that time. But if you get this Giants defense on the pull in, if they're going to run, it's going to set up over the top for Cooks and Lamb. So that's what I'm definitely looking for. As for the Giants, I said Singletary. I also think that, I don't know if Bellinger was questionable. I think he is starting. I think David Bellinger needs to get more involved in this game. He's a big target, and he kind of reminds me a little of Jason Ferguson in the way he uses his hands, and he can route run. And last thing before I switch it over to the patch, Rudy Campos also says one more thing. The Giants' X factor is also going to be Wendell Robinson, because he's going to help take the focus away from Malik Neighbors, as we all know, the Dallas Cowboys only have one good cornerback right
now. All right. We thank Rudy for his insight. Patchman.
Looking at CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb has to step up tonight. You know, he's not been doing. I mean, he's getting the yards, but he's not finding the end zone. So CeeDee Lamb has to find a way to find pay dirt and get the end zone. He gets some touchdowns on the board. He only has one right now this year, I believe. Flipping to the Giants, it has to be Daniel Jones. If you look at the 2020s, the Cowboys are 7-1 against the Giants so far in the 2020s. So Daniel Jones has to get the monkey off his back, for lack of a better term, and find a way to beat the Cowboys, because that's the kryptonite right now to the Giants. They can find a way to beat other teams, but right now in the 2020s, if you go back to the 2010s, where the Cowboys were 13-7 against them, the Giants only have 8 wins in the last 24 years against the Cowboys. That, you know, that's kind of like Green Bay, Chicago territory, where the Packers just own the Bears in recent memory. Like it's a laughing stock, and it's just like you can waste your money on sites that you like to put money on certain things where you can guarantee that the Cowboys will win. But with the way the Cowboys have been playing, you know, this might finally be a second win for the Giants in the 2020s. So it has to be Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has to step up tonight big time against the Cowboys at home, in prime time, on Prime and local television, and if you're in the New York area, because, hey, thank God for no blackouts. So you get to watch the Giants on local TV. Shout out to them. But, you know, if Daniel Jones doesn't win, then it all goes back to him. Oh, maybe last week was just a fluke. So Daniel, it's the weight's on Daniel Jones right now, the monkey. If he can find a way, get 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns, the Giants rushing team can get the job done, and the defense comes up and plays big time, we can be looking at saying the Cowboys are a certain F word right now And the Giants might be and the Giants might be an ST term. If for the fans out there, ST term sleeper team. People can't figure that out.
Sure.
The F word, not fudge, but fraud.
But
and we know a certain ESPN correspondent is watching tonight's game, waiting and salivating at this game.
Yes, you know who you are. For me, X factor for the Cowboys. I actually agree with Rudy Campos. For the Cowboys, it's got to be Micah Parsons. I think he's really, because this has got to be the real test towards Daniel Jones, because he's been up, down, up, down, up, down. Micah Parsons needs to get into Daniel Jones's head a little bit, and I think he needs to. And I think so he could sack him, in the words of Mark and Rudy, all the way to China. When it comes to the Giants, I also agree Devin Singletary, because he's got to take advantage of the rush defense. Dallas's rush defense has been very weak. They gave up a combined yards of 464 yards over the games between New Orleans and Baltimore. So I think Devin Singletary is the one who's going to need to step it up. I'm actually going to add a question here that I want to ask you fellas. Who do you think is more on the hot seat this year, Brian Daboll or Mike McCarthy? Let's start with the Patch Man.
This is really a coin flip, because we know Mike McCarthy can bring a team to the postseason and maybe take a team on a Super Bowl run. We saw it with the Packers. He won Super Bowl 45. He lost a couple NFC Championship games. He lost a couple wildcard games. Lost a couple divisional games. It happens.
All right.
And if we flip it to, Brian Daboll, everyone thought Brian Daboll was this breath of fresh air for the Giants, and it was for the first season. Giants got to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and lost. Okay, that shows progress. Daniel Jones had a good coach. Everything looked promising. Last season happens, and then it was a complete dumpster fire in New York, especially being blown out the first week against the Cowboys 40-0. And then it was just a bunch of flags went off saying maybe Brian Daboll isn't a fit, or this was a fluke. It's really a coin flip right now. Non-biased, it has to be Daboll, because I trust the Cowboys more than I trust the Giants to get to the playoffs and go on a Super Bowl run. I think Brian Daboll is just in over his head right now, and it's going to come to a crash and burn situation with the Giants.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. As much as I love the Giants and as optimistic as I am about Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones, I think, Brian Daboll hasn't had the same track record as Mike McCarthy. Yes, breath of fresh air in year one, having gotten to the playoffs, actually winning a game, but then Philly blew them away.
Oh, everyone knew that was going to happen because Philly was such a great team. Philly had everything going. It was like you put the Little Giants in there, and the Little Giants went on a run.
Seems fair and accurate. But yeah, I would say then that Brian Daboll is on the hot seat more so than Mike McCarthy. Depending on the result of this game, though, because like we were saying earlier, they lose the Cowboys, and that's it for McCarthy in Dallas.
Mark, what do you think?
Me and Rudy are in 100% in agreement. Anything less than the NFC Championship for McCarthy, he's gone anyway. To the final year of his contract. But if the Giants beat Dallas tonight, I would not be surprised if McCarthy's let go Monday morning.
So you think McCarthy's more on the hot seat?
Yes.
To me, I would say Dable's more on the hot seat because, after that first season where they made the playoffs, okay, we're ahead of schedule. And then last season was the season you should have had the first season. And if the Giants regress, then I think Dable's out of a job, and I think Jones is gone too. When you flip it to Dallas, I think and I agree with you and Rudy Campos, Mark. Anything less than NFC title game, he's gone. Okay, it is time, my friends, for rapid fire. Got 2 questions. You got 2 minutes to answer this. Here we go. Starting clock now. Which undefeated team is on upset alert this week? Patch.
Well, of course, you come to me where I don't know undefeated teams at the moment, but that's fine. Let's see. Let's see. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Minnesota are all undefeated, along with Seattle. And we're looking at a hot seat team. I believe it's the Steelers. The Steelers, are in a QB hypothetical battle right now. We're waiting for Russell Wilson to come back, and they're relying on Justin Fields right now. Granted, we look at Mike Tolman's track record, never had a losing season. But we out of those 5 or 6 teams, I can't remember how many teams I raffled off. They're the one team I can see losing this week because Buffalo is in cruising form. Kansas City's in cruising form. Those 2 teams you expect to win week 4. Pittsburgh, they're going to face the Colts. Colts are a sleeper team because if Michael Pittman Jr. is on, Anthony Richardson is on, the Colts are another sleeper team that you just have to watch out for, and I believe the Colts can win this game, especially at home in Indy. So give me the Steelers as the hot seat team that's undefeated to lose.
All right, John.
I'm going to say it's the Seattle Seahawks because their wins so far haven't exactly come against the toughest opponents. I mean, you got Denver, you barely beat them. The Patriots, you needed overtime to beat them. Oh, hello, Nico. Sorry, my cat just jumped out from behind the chair.
Hi, Nico.
And they leave Jilly alone. Sorry about that. Miami.
At that moment.
Miami's just got blown away, but
that's minus Tua. That's minus Tua, and then you're relying on the third string quarterback because Skylar Thompson went down.
Yeah, and then the Lions at home in prime time. That's not exactly the easiest matchup for anyone, especially a team who's only been facing not so great teams. So my bet's on the Seahawks to lose this week.
Mark.
Personally, I think it's Buffalo. I think Buffalo hasn't played an offense like Baltimore yet. So this Buffalo defense is going to be tested. I look for Buffalo to be on the hot seat to lose their first game. Sorry, Nate.
I'm going to agree with John here. I'm going to say Seattle. They're playing Detroit this week. In Detroit. And Detroit's been getting off to a decent start, so I'm going with Seattle. Now, on the flip side, which 0-3 team you think is going to pull off an upset this week? Let's start with John this time.
Honestly, I'm going to say the Bengals. I would say enough said they're facing the Panthers. But the Panthers actually did pull off a win.
Yeah.
Said the Panthers haven't exactly had the best track record this season or the last couple of seasons. I mean, what did they win? 2, maybe 3 games last year? So, God's honest truth, I think that Carolina is in for a rough week.
Mark?
I'm looking at Jacksonville. I think with the fact that Trevor Lawrence has been talked to and been pretty much told he is in dangerous territory of being benched, and after the sluggish way Houston played last week, I'm looking for Jacksonville to come up with the upset this week.
Patchman.
I think it's Tennessee. Tennessee, they're still trying to figure things out. But if you look at the situation in Miami right now with, I think Skylar Thompson's questionable, and now you're relying on, I think it's either Tim Boyle or Tyler Huntley. Unfortunately, Miami has the offensive weapons. It's just their star quarterback is out right now again with their 5th or 6th concussion. And the backup QBs are just not performing well. It's a sad blow to Miami, but this is Tennessee's game to grab by the throat and go out and win after being blown out by their old quarterback last week.
I'm going to go with John here, and I'm going to say Cincinnati because I think Joe Burrow's hungry for a win this week.
He absolutely is.
And granted, they're going to be playing against Carolina. And John, shout out to our friend Mike, who's a Carolina fan. I'm sure he's still celebrating from last week.
Don't count out Andy Dalton. The Bryce Young experience right now in Carolina is not that well, and it's turning into a maybe a Ryan Leaf situation, or the other quarterback I can't think of right now off the top of my head that played for the Raiders, I believe. Mark, you can help me with this one.
Oh God, you're going way back to the guy like Metzenberger.
Not Netzenberger. There was another quarterback there that was Jamarcus Russell. There we go.
Russell. Okay.
Yeah, Jamarcus Russell. Where like Bryce Young right now is in the Jamarcus Russell Ryan Leaf situation where maybe he should have been benched for. Well, granted, Ryan Leaf, Jamarcus Russell went out played, and their careers didn't pan out as well. But Andy Dalton was a breath of fresh air. Breath of fresh air in Carolina. Look what the Panthers did. The Panthers put up points. Andy Dalton looked like the old Andy Dalton of Cincinnati. So it's a tosser right now with Carolina, because if Andy Dalton plays again, the Panthers looking at another win, and Cincinnati's going 0-4.
Sorry, Pat.
And
to do
now,
Pat,
gentlemen,
Rudy also agrees that the Carolina-Cincy game will be a trap game. Dalton is definitely on a revenge tour this weekend.
Okay. Now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's make predictions. Let's start with Patchman.
Well, if we go back to last season, the Cowboys outscored the Giants, I believe it was 89-17.
That is correct.
89-17 points last year. Giants only put up 17. Breath of fresh air in New York right now with, life without Saquon Barkley, and you're relying on Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary is a great running back. You got a rookie wide receiver that looks good right now, Malik Neighbors. I think it's a close game. I think the Giants actually put up points this time, maybe more than 17, maybe a 24 spot, maybe 27 spot. 30's pushing it, but I see this being a 27-24 Cowboys victory.
Okay. John.
I'm going to say last season for Giants fans against the Cowboys sucked.
Mm-hmm.
To put it bluntly and to keep it short. But this year, despite the departure of Saquon Barkley, we've got some fresh air. Rookie Malik Neighbors, Daniel Jones is looking better. I think with the home field advantage, the Giants just barely squeak out a victory.
All right, Mark.
I never want to call out an all-out win, because a game like this can easily be called, like Rudy just said before, a trap game. The Giants aren't a horrible football team. They're not a good one either, but they can play, as we've seen in the few weeks. However, I think Dallas has a lot to answer for. And as I said, they're throwing the playbook out the window. They're going to have fun with it. No offense, Bill, John. I'm looking at a 49-10 routing.
Okay, you know what? Call me a fool's wish. I think, if the Giants played like they did last week, I'm saying probably a 27-23 Giants could win this. Okay, I'd like to thank Lawrence Patchman Lang, Mark Oldovsky Halper, and John Haraska for joining me this evening. If you want to know more, go to www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. Check out us all on our socials. And don't forget to check out our podcast, available on all platforms. And also, forgot to mention this, after we get off here in a couple minutes, we're going to be live streaming the game.
Got to stop, get the food preparation ready. I got food set up.
So
kickoff's in about 10 minutes. So Mark, you got to rush this.
Oh yeah.
You kidding me? It's delivered. All I got to do is put it out and open it.
All right, guys. So guys, we will see you in a couple minutes. If you want to watch me and Mark scream at each other.
I got my popcorn ready.
From all of us here at SIN.
Patch is waiting for the show, but we do have a deal. Bill and I will be civil for the first 5 minutes of the game. After that, all rules out the door. And John, as we said, if you're available, you want to come in and hang out, watch the game with us, you're more than welcome.
And I need some backup, John.
If I can sneak in, I will.
Okay. That's
Okay.
fine.
But I can't make a promise.
So we will see you all later.